Mr. Chairman, thank you. To follow on to, and Mr. Secretary, thank you very much. To follow on what Senator Blumenthal was talking about, jobs for veterans, one of the aspects that we've focused on is entrepreneurship and startup businesses, and this committee on Thursday will have a roundtable discussion in regard to the VA, to veterans' opportunities to support entrepreneurship and startup businesses as a method of earning a living and providing for families. So I appreciate that that's occurring, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much. Mr. Secretary, when we last visited, which I think was in January, I, as usual, highlighted the shortage of professional health care providers within the VA system, especially, at least what I'm most familiar with is in Kansas. We talked about our CBOCs, and Kansas is a very rural state, long distances to travel to the VA hospital. We've been successful with the VA's help in opening CBOCs, but we have a tremendous shortage of physicians, nurse practitioners, and physician assistants. And most of our CBOCs no longer have a physician. And my understanding is that that hasn't changed since we visited in January. So I want to highlight that problem once again. I also raised the topic of mental health professionals. The VA's plan in April was to hire 1,600 new clinical mental health staff, including marriage and family therapists and licensed professional counselors. And my understanding is that, and maybe you've included this in your testimony, that a significant number of that 1,600, a little over 1,000, have been hired. But the numbers in Kansas are surprising or discouraging to me. And Kansas, again, because of our rural nature, that's not an untypical, not an atypical way of providing mental health services, either utilizing MFTs or LPCs. And from August of 2011 to August of 2012, there were no MFTs and no LPCs hired at any Kansas facility. USAjobs.gov, VA has posted 0 positions in Kansas for either one of those professionals, for either one of those professional licenses. Vision 15 as a whole, Kansas City, Missouri had 2 MFTs and 0 LPCs on staff. St. Louis had 2 LPCs and 0 MFTs. These two groups represent 40% of the mental health professionals in the United States, but only 1% of the VA workforce. I'd be interested in your response and your suggestions of how we can provide mental health services to more Kansas veterans.
Let me call on Dr. Petzel.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Moran. The MFTs and family counselors are new positions, relatively new positions to the VA. We just, less than 2 years ago, certified them and got them into the mix of people that we could hire. And we are behind the power curve in terms of hiring these people. I don't know specifically the numbers about Kansas. I will go back and find out and get back to you. And you make an excellent point. Hiring these people who are recruitable in rural areas, I think, is a very good alternative to the difficulty that we have in hiring psychologists and psychiatrists in those areas. So I will be in communication with you about Kansas specifically and what we might be able to do.
I appreciate that and look forward to your response. It reminds me of the effort that I was the sponsor of legislation in the House now years ago to incorporate chiropractic care within the VA. Can you, Secretary Petzel, bring me up to date on chiropractic services within the VA?
I would like to take that for the record, if you don't mind.
Right.
We do employ them at virtually every one of our medical centers, and a substantial amount of referral business outside.
It remains a priority for me. Again, the rural nature of Kansas, chiropractic care is a significant way that health care services are delivered, and it may be the same pattern. The VA, in my view, was very slow. This is before either one of any of you's time, but very slow in incorporating the mandate, the requirement that the VA provide for chiropractic care within the VA system. And let me raise one more topic before my time expires. I asked this question again last January. I've not received a reply, and it is apparently not in the FY14 budget. There has been considerable planning for a joint VA, DOD medical facility at McConnell Air Force Base, and not in the budget. And I asked for a status update last January about McConnell and the Dole VA in Wichita. And perhaps, again, for the record, or if you know information today, I'd be pleased to know what, if any, progress is being made.
Dr. Petzel.
Thank you, Senator Moran. There is a proposal that's been developed for a major construction project that would be a joint venture with, as you point out, McConnell Medical Center. It's $154 million. It was submitted. It was in the mix of those projects that were rated. In the SCIP process, which rates the construction projects, it did not score high enough to be funded in 2014.
And that scoring takes place at the VA or within the administration? Where is that scoring?
Scoring is done by the Department of Veterans Affairs.
VA.
Okay. And what does that mean then for the future of this project?
Well, the expectation would be that this project will be submitted again and will be scored again.
I'd like to follow up with you and see if I can find out where perhaps the need for greater information or any deficiencies that we ought to be addressing in regard to this project.
Yeah.
Certainly.
What usually happens on the strategic capital investment plan, this rank ordering, this prioritizing, the ones that are funded get worked off, and then there's a review, and then others move up in subsequent cycles.
We'd like to work with you to see that it moves up as quickly as possible. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Thank you.